Good afternoon, everyone. We're here to conduct our first meeting into the investigation into the governor. And according to the agenda, we'll go through the agenda. Quorum has been established, so I hereby call this meeting to order. At this time, I would like to ask, before we proceed with anything on the agenda, I would like to ask if there are any members of the public who would like to step up to the podium and make public comments. You can also submit comments to any member of the JGO committee. At this time, I will open the floor for public comments. I'm sorry, prior to that, can we have a motion to adopt the agenda for today? A motion has been made, it has been seconded. The agenda for today has been adopted. At this time, I will open the floor to the public to come up to the podium and make public comments. Please state your name for the record, and we're giving all participants 5 minutes for their comments.
Thank you, Chairwoman. My name is Layla Staffler, and I'm actually, I have a written testimony from someone who is off island and wishes to remain anonymous. May I proceed?
Yes, you may.
This is a letter sent to me online. It says, Hafa-day CNMI legislatures, especially the JGO committee. The CNMI capture and corruption has a clear impact on the peoples of this Commonwealth. The consequences of corruption have been undoubtedly contributed to deepening inequality, poverty, and unemployment, and extends beyond our financial loss. The capacity of the CNMI has been severely eroded, and human rights and the rule of law have been compromised by the actions of corrupt individuals and powerful corporations and politicians. The struggle against corruption and the rebuilding of our government cannot only be left to law enforcement agencies and the justice system. The people of the Commonwealth should also play a part in holding those in power to account of their actions. We therefore continue to mobilize around the work of OPA, AG's office, and the CNMI legislatures on issues of corruption, because the reality is that the CNMI struggles for social justice and human rights will not be realized if those who loot with impunity in the public and private sector remain unaccountable. To the political elites who write ruminating columns and use the loud hailers of social media to fuel the fires of division for political machinations, we say no single political organization can claim ownership of speaking for the people. That voice belongs to each one of us, the people of the Commonwealth. To the powerful corporations that have enabled CNMI capture and corruption, we call on you to come clean and stop placing profits above people and human rights. You have enabled injustice for too long. To the media and the media owners, now is the time to be more critical and considered in your reporting, not less. Clearly separate fact from fiction. Avoid stepping onto the stage of skeptical distraction to help ensure the continued restoration of the public's faith in a free and fair press. To all those hard-working civil servants in the government who relentlessly work for our people and help carry the CNMI through this terrible pandemic, we thank you. To the brave whistleblowers that continue to come forward, often at great personal cost, we also say thank you. We stand with you and will be forever grateful for your courage and sacrifice. To OPA, AG's office, and the Democrat leadership in the House of Representatives, we say keep up the hard work. While standing in full support of your work includes remaining critical, it cannot be stressed enough that the work you are doing, peeling back the layers of secrecy and exposing the extent of the rot in our systems of government, is vital for the future of the Commonwealth. This work is contributing to the growing knowledge of what needs to change for the CNMI to move forward and for our democracy to be strengthened. It is a question that still needs to be answered by powerful corporations and the political elite of this Commonwealth. There are many people that remain in key positions of power who have been implicated in serious corruption and malfeasance. The OPA, AG's office, and CNMI legislature and the courts are 4 bodies responsible for articulating and shepherding the constitutional aspirations of our democracy. Legislatures, law enforcement, and the many other institutions that make up our body politic also have a constitutional duty in holding those in power to account. To this end, we call on all of our institutions institutions to publicly denounce disinformation and fabricated crises, and to pursue their constitutional mandates with renewed strength and integrity. Amongst these, we do not exclude the elite in public and private sector to meet over tea and plot the future trajectory of our Commonwealth and divide up the spoils. This needs to stop. Such practices have no place in the democracy we've worked for or were promised. Why is this important? We have elected leaders and bestowed on them the responsibility to govern and to enable us to achieve a better life for all, not just themselves. We, as the people of the Commonwealth, have a right to know in whose interest decisions supposedly in our name were and continue to be made. The culture of secrecy and impunity must come to an end if our democracy is to thrive. Transparency and accountability are non-negotiable, as too are the requirements for transformative actions to address the injustices that remain embedded in our social, economic, and political systems. Our Constitution is revolutionary in its design, but the values and vision that it prescribes can only materialize if embraced by the people through which it is enacted. As people of this Commonwealth, we all support the value and vision of the Constitution, which protects the rights of the people in our Commonwealth. It is the bedrock of our democracy and foundation of the rule of law. Thank you for accepting this anonymous letter to raise our voices in solidarity against corruption and to say now is the time for us to stand together and be heard. The realities and the current moment cannot be met with silence and complacency. Thank you for allowing me to read this letter that was sent to me via email from someone off island who wishes to remain anonymous. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Leila Stafford. At this time, I'd like to recognize the speakers in the chamber. Welcome, speaker. Also recognizing Representative Ralph Yumo in the chamber. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the galley who wishes to come up to the podium?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, Representative Abauta, and also to the members of this House JGO committee. My name is Edith De Leon Guerrero. I am an elected senator for the island of Saipan, the 3rd Senatorial District, but at the same time too, as a concerned citizen of this Commonwealth, and for all the other citizens out there that are looking for some answers, some clarity, some assurances from its elected officials of how this Commonwealth is to be managed today and in the future for our people and the future generations to come. I'm so happy to see the agenda this afternoon. In fact, I just printed it out just before I came into this chamber, and quite relief in the sense that finally there's going to be some discussions and hopefully also subpoenas of certain individuals, department heads, appointees of this government to answer to the people and to answer to this body about the abuses of government, respectfully, on fundings, the usage of public funds for personal gain. In my opinion, certain elected officials, I would say that they consider this position as a way to have some kind of windfall, which is very unfortunate because just before our eyes, we get to see that a lot happening as we speak. And that's the very situation that really saddens my heart personally, that it's becoming almost like a game of who's going to make the most money, taking it away from the people. We can no longer remain silent. We need to be reminded who we are and who put us here in this home. This house belongs to the people of the Commonwealth. It is not my house, neither is it your house. And I'm talking from the very top to the very bottom of this government and every person that is employed by this government. We are public servants. We don't own this place. We don't own this government. It belongs to the people that put us here. I do want to read something from the statute that should serve as a reminder of this legislature, both the Senate and the House. And it is the very body that created this declaration. And we all need to be reminded of what exactly we said that made it become a statute. It is the law of the land and of the books that we promised to the people of this great Commonwealth that we will protect their interest. And I'm going to read it verbatim Some people say, oh, it's only reflective of the Open Government Act. But listen to the language of the statute. Some people out in the community say it's a waste of time what's happening up at the House to try to look into the governor's expenditures, da 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 da. I say no, it's not a waste of time because it's not his money. It is the people's money, and it's very important. And for any elected official that needs to be scrutinized how they spend the people's money. Shame on us for taking it to our advantage if any of us is using it to enrich ourselves. No more, no mas. The people are tired. Enough of the abuse. It's about time. We open it up. Let's have a candid conversation. Let's have true transparency and accountability and give it to the people because it is their government. So please allow me to read this briefly. It says, Title I, Government, Division 9, Miscellaneous Provisions. Subsection 9901, Legislative Declarations. The legislature finds and declares that all public commissions, boards, councils, committees, subcommittees, departments, divisions, offices, and all other public agencies of this Commonwealth exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. It is the intent of this chapter that their actions be taken openly and that their deliberations be conducted openly. The people of the Commonwealth do not yield, and I say it, do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is not good for them to know. The people insist on remaining informed so that they may retain control, over the instruments they have created. The provisions requiring open meetings and open records shall be liberally construed, and the provisions providing for exceptions to the open meeting requirements and open records requirements shall be strictly construed against closed meetings and non-disclosure of records. We know that during the past legislature, some documents were redacted. How dare this government deny the people the truth, deny the people transparency of what they need to know of what's happening in their government. I applaud you in this committee. I will thank you personally and on behalf of the constituents that I represent on the island of Saipan to please do your job diligently, conduct your investigations, subpoena everybody and anybody that may have been involved in the acts against the people of this Commonwealth. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Dijon Guerrero. At this time, the floor is still open. Is there anybody else in the gallery who wishes to come up and make public comments? Okay, I see that no one else is approaching the podium. We will move on to, at this time, I would like to open up the floor to members of the committee to deliver any remarks if they have any. I recognize Representative Richard Lizama.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm glad that we are now moving forward to conduct the investigation for the people of the Sinai. It's way overdue. The people have been waiting for this. We are here to do our job diligently, and we are here to come with a complete result at the end. Like the old Lieutenant Governor, the late Governor Teno, said, there is no one above the law. So we're here as a body to fulfill this obligation, an obligation that we are here for by the people that put us here at the legislature, an obligation to conduct and do it thoroughly and come up with a good conclusion. Thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Representative Lasoma. At this time, I would like to recognize Representative Camacho.
Good afternoon, colleagues and the viewing public. Today, we find ourselves gathered to exercise our legislative powers as a whole, and more importantly, as individual lawmakers, to make critical decisions, to address the abuse that has been imposed upon our people's constitutional rights. May this body as a whole make the right decisions for the betterment of the people as a whole and return to them their basic constitutional rights, the freedom of choice, the freedom of the press, and their government. The people have been oppressed for far too long, and it is time for the people to exercise their rights. We live in a democratic system of government, and the people are the foundations of this government. Democracy, meaning rule of the people, is a system of government in which the citizens exercise power directly or elect representatives from amongst themselves to form a governing body, the rule of the majority. The history of fraud, waste, and abuse within the executive branch, the blatant disregard and the disrespect towards the citizens of the great Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands by this governor has the citizens crying to end the injustice. When the governor raised his right hand to pledge the oath, this is what he said. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, the covenant to establish a Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands in political union with the United States of America, the applicable provisions of the Constitution, laws, and treaties of the United States of America, and that I will faithfully discharge my duties to the best of my abilities. The deceit imposed on the people has fractured the people's trust. The unethical practices and the lack of moral values are the underlying evils that has divided the people of this great Commonwealth. As a legislative body, we are acting upon this unprecedented movement to end the people's suffering. The leadership lack basic principles that make for a strong society. Instead, it has been replaced with neglect, intimidation, nepotism, cronyism, fraud, waste, and abuse. The new principles installed within the self-serving and enriching behavior is loyalty. Loyalty is the key factor on how a sound government for the people is run. Every government employee that puts in a day's work for a day's pay is loyal. But to select the few to work your deeds is not loyalty. It is abuse and an encroachment of basic human rights and betrayal to those who put us in office to enhance the people's daily lives and the lives of the next generation that is under threat. It's a sad day, an embarrassing day once again. The CNMI finds itself at a crossroad. A broken government that was premeditated, stolen revenues, unforeseen natural disasters caused by super typhoons, and the COVID-19 pandemic and the bad leadership that took advantage of the situation and continues to take advantage. They are equal powers of the three branches of government. We are a democratic society, not a communist party. To my fellow people, we ask for your support. We ask for your trust and understanding as we move forward to determine the removal of our governor who is unfit to govern. God bless us all.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Is there anybody else that wishes to make opening statements or comments at this time? I recognize Representative Tina Sablon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues and members of the viewing public, members of the public who are here in the gallery today. I want to begin by saying thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Speaker and colleagues, for reopening this investigation into the public expenditures of Governor Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres. Thank you for your commitment to seeking the truth and ensuring due process and accountability. As you are well aware, this investigation began in the 21st legislature, but the special committee appointed to review the expenditures in question did not complete its work. The House minority of the 21st legislature, however, did produce a report of our findings. That report is on our agenda today and has been referred by the Speaker to this body. And it includes recommendations for oversight, legislative reform, and further investigation into the governor's conduct. Among those findings in the report, colleagues, I would note in particular the following. Between January 2015 and July 2020, Governor Torres took over 100 trips that cost taxpayers an estimated $500,000 for himself alone in airfare, per diem and stipends, lodging, and ground or boat transportation. This included at least 40 business or first class trips, which are specifically prohibited by CNMI law. Between December 2016 and December 2019, Governor Torres' spouse, the First Lady, Diane Torres, also took at least 31 government-funded trips, most with the governor, including 14 first class or business class trips. Airfare costs alone for her totaled approximately $82,000. Most of these trips by the governor and the First Lady lacked the detailed trip reports and public purpose justifications that are required by law and by finance regulation. Governor Torres also appears to have conducted political and personal activities while on government travel and received government-paid reimbursements per diem and lodging during political or personal stops. There was a 3-week promotional trip to the Northern Islands in the summer of 2020 in the middle of a global pandemic that cost the government more than $90,000 and involved the intensive use or misuse of government resources, including public safety officers, search and rescue boats, fuel, vehicles, equipment, supplies, and staff from multiple agencies. There were multiple violations of CNMI law and regulations during that trip. Between January 2015 and December 2019, Governor Torres incurred at least $150,000 in official representation and reimbursement costs to the government, including tens of thousands of dollars in unallowable types of costs that are deemed personal or political under finances regulations. This includes personal gifts or items such as rifle cases, hunting gear, alcohol, lavish expenses on hostings for political operatives, unnamed investors or business partners. And the list really goes on. 24 different credit cards, at least 24 different credit cards appear in the receipts that he submitted for reimbursement. Colleagues, we do have a duty to pick up from where the special committee and the minority report of the 21st legislature left off. Thousands of pages of these documents were reviewed during the investigation that began last year. Several hearings over several hours were conducted with a number of administration officials at finance and the governor's office to examine the troubling question of why, in the middle of the committee's investigation, records that were sought by the special committee, the original finance records, were physically redacted. During these hearings, potential witnesses were also identified for future hearings, and many questions remain unanswered. At the same time that Governor Torres has publicly stated that he welcomes this inquiry and is willing to come in and answer our questions, his surrogates have continued to attack those of us who have dared to question his expenditures of the people's money. They say it's a witch hunt, it's a waste of time, it's politics. That criticism is to be expected. But colleagues, let's not be distracted by the noise. We should be focused on the task at hand to fairly and diligently review the facts, bring them to the light of public scrutiny, complete this investigation, and do our part to restore the people's trust in their government and the rule of law, because ultimately it comes down to that. I am ready to work, Madam Chair. We do have a lot of work ahead of us, but this is the mandate that we have been given by the people we represent. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Representative Soblan. Is there anybody else who would like to make comments or statements? If not, I'll make a statement. There is no doubt that holding an impeachment is contentious. The removal of any sitting officer in the executive or judicial branch is a very serious matter for any government. But the Constitution is clear. Impeachment is a process meant to hold our leaders accountable for serious infractions against the laws of our land. Citizens have a right to truthful information in a democracy. Without credible information about what our elected officials are doing, we cannot effectively exercise our right to vote. That is my belief. When an elected official and those he appoints are untruthful and hide behind a veneer of legality to the public, our access to information is jeopardized, and trust in our entire government systems is eroded. How could it not be? When citizens have lost faith and hope in their elected officials, the foundations of democracy weaken, and the value of honest and fair elections is diminished. It is often the reason why we hear our constituents say, "Bastazu mambota." My faith in our Constitution is whole. It is complete. It is total. This committee has the constitutional and legislative duty to protect and defend against the diminution, the subversion, and the destruction of our Constitution. When he took the oath of office on December 29, 2015, Governor Torres swore before thousands of residents that he would faithfully execute the office of the governor. In view of the enormous trust and responsibility attendant to his high office, the governor has a solemn duty to ensure that his conduct at all times complies with the law of the land. Instead, on November 7, 2019, and again on March 16, 2021, the United States District Attorney's Office, through the Federal Bureau of Investigations and other federal agencies, executed multiple search and seizure warrants on his personal residence, his vehicle, his tax records, the personal residences of his family, and the law firm of his brothers, in what is alleged to be his association with the exclusive casino licensee, Imperial Pacific International. These investigations also allege illegal campaign contributions. This investigation is the right step. No one need be afraid. The pendulum of justice is in full swing. There are no exceptions to the rule of law. With that said, as chair of the Judiciary and Governmental Operations Committee, in consultation with the Speaker and members of this committee, I am formally announcing the opening of the investigation into the governor's expenditures related to COVID procurement, COVID expenditures, IPI matters, travel, reimbursements, and other financial matters. Thank you. Does anybody else want to make comments? If not, we will move along to the next item on the agenda, number 3. It is the report on public expenditures of Governor Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres, violations of laws, areas of abuse, and recommendations for oversight and reform. That is the report that came out of the 21st legislature, and I would like to defer to the legal counsel at this time to explain the parameters and citations of statutes and the Constitution that gives this body the authority to conduct investigations. Legal counsel. 1301. 1301.
Chair, as you mentioned, the CNMI codes, which codify CNMI law, set forth the statutory powers, which are sections 1301, subpoenas for witnesses, subpoenas for documents, 1309, any other legal procedures that the committee deems appropriate. It's a very generalized statute, and both of these statutes find their basis in the CNMI Constitution. Article 2, which governs the legislative branch, allows for the CNMI legislature to subpoena witnesses, compel testimony, fine people in contempt if they fail to comply, allows the Sergeant at Arms to take actions if necessary to arrest individuals. These powers are well established, and hopefully we will not have to avail of all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. At this time, if there are no objections from the members, can we ask Representative Sablon to expound on the minority report?
Certainly, Madam Chair and colleagues. So this minority report was submitted on the House floor by the members of the minority, then myself, Representative Franklin Babata, Representative Edmund Villagomez, Representative Sheila Babata, Representative Richard Lizama, and Representative Glonia on January 6, 2021. The report focused on the public expenditures of Governor Ralph Torres from October 2014 to July 2020. There was a review of over 7,000 pages of records, public records that had been obtained through a number of Open Government Act requests, as well as through the investigative work of the special committee that was appointed by the Speaker, then PJ Etel, to investigate executive expenditures. In this report, a number of those records are also publicly available for review. They were placed in an online drive and also filed with the clerk. A number of the records that were requested were redacted, but we were able to obtain original unredacted records that came pursuant to an earlier Open Government Act request. And so there was a review of all these records, 7,600 pages altogether, and an examination of executive travel, So looking at first class and business class trips in particular that the governor and the First Lady as well took over this period in review. There was also an examination of the trip reports. There were almost no trip reports for most of the 100 plus trips that were taken during this period in review. We looked at personal and political activities that appear to have been conducted during government travel. We also looked at during the investigation, there was a trip to the Northern Islands that occurred between June and July 2020. We looked at the expenditures that were involved in that and obtained records through the special committee as to that. We also looked at reimbursements that the governor requested and took note of all the different credit cards that were used in these expenditures, the types of expenses, a lot of electronics, a lot of hostings, a lot of items that appeared to be personal in nature, and documented those. The report highlights some of the more problematic expenses related to travel and reimbursements. And then part of the scope of our review of the records included other expenses like the housing and utilities benefits. The governor was billing to the Commonwealth utilities at his personal residence, and so we looked at some records related to that. We don't believe that finance submitted all of the records for the period that we requested. And then we made some recommendations, and those recommendations are, just to summarize, that there should be legislative oversight conducted on the Department of Finance to review the status of travel regulations that they are mandated by law to adopt, and also their implementation of policy regarding official representation and reimbursements. There was a recommendation to pass legislation to eliminate the housing and utility benefits that are provided, the housing benefits that are provided by law, and to explicitly prohibit the use of public funds to pay for the utility bills of any officials at their private residences. And Representative Richard Lizama is the main sponsor for that bill that has been introduced. We also recommended that there should be engagement with the Office of the Attorney General and the Office of the Public Auditor for further investigation of allegations of waste, fraud, or abuse of public funds, misconduct in office, and other violations of law that were uncovered during our review of these records. And then finally, we recommended that legislative oversight into Governor Torres's public expenditure should continue in the 22nd legislature. And notably, we recommended that there should be further examination whether Governor Torres committed any misconduct in office or abuse of public funds, and whether any violations that were identified rise to the level of legislative censure, impeachment, or other action. We recommended that key witnesses should be summoned to the 22nd legislature to answer questions by this body, and that should include, but not be limited to, current and former finance secretaries, current and former executive security officers and other staff of the administration, and individuals named in Governor Torres's request for reimbursement or other records of public expenditures. We also recommended that Governor Torres, that we should take care to ensure that he is afforded due process and the opportunity to fully respond to the issues of concern dealing with the expenditures, his expenditures of public funds and his conduct in public office. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Sabuan. So to the members, we have now heard the council explain to us the parameters of conducting or opening this investigation, and to take care of formalities in this meeting. I would now like to request for a motion to reopen the investigation.
Second.
Recess, short recess.
Are we on Facebook still? Live or not? Okay,
We're still live.
we're still live.
Telling the chair, Kuno ba rin?
Hanggang pa.
We're still rolling live.
Check again. Go.
The 21st legislature died. Mute the microphone thing.